My name is Ray Verlage. I'm born to a Saskatchewan father and a Toronto mother. While he was a student in Toronto, they linked up and got married. And when I was 2 years old, I moved back to Saskatchewan, which is where I was raised. And in grade 12, we moved to Regina with a small business that we had sold. And there I met a girl who had also come to Regina in grade 12, courtesy of a CPR transfer with her family. And so we met, and even to today, I firmly believe that God planted her very purposefully in my life. And so then we got married, predicated on a transfer of me to Winnipeg, which is usually a fish or cut bait event with the girl. And then after being in Winnipeg for 5 years, where Anita finished pharmacy, we then got transferred with the same company to Edmonton. I was 23 at the time, and they put me on the road as a technical sales rep. And spent a total of 18 years with that company. And at some point then I became an independent sales rep, and then moved to Calgary, spent 15 or so years there, and closed that business. And then we were laying in our bunk in our sailboat in the Bahamas one day, because there was a trip that we snuck in there in 2016 and decided we needed to make a move in life, and it needed to be to salt water and rain or fresh water and sun. And well, you know the rest now. We're in the Okanagan. You know which one we picked. And so in 2016 we moved here, and been here since then. How does a prairie kid, become a sailor? And when I got transferred to Winnipeg, my manager, there was just two of us in the branch that was just being opened, invited me up to his cottage, and we went sailing on his laser, what I call wet bum sailing. And I just got the bug, and it never left. And one of my isms in life is when you find something that both spouses enjoy doing, you should throw resources at that. And Anita and I kind of both took to sailing, and we just kept pursuing it, and it served us well even till, now 50 years later. And so in the meantime, we've gone through 2 or 3 different boats. It's taken us to a vacation home and a 16-year stint in Montana, where we made wonderful friends and learned how to race. And then I went to the West Coast and got an offshore skipper certificate. And so it just kind of developed that as time went by. And that's how we kind of got the sailing bug. I was raised Catholic, went to a Roman Catholic school and all those things, and was probably what I would call a nominal Catholic. And then Anita came into my life very dramatically in one event, and of course any guy who's 18 years old wants to go where the girl is, and she was raised in a Christian home, and you know that story now. And so I went to the Alliance Church, because that's where the girl was, and the gentleman at the pulpit was speaking right into my breadbasket. And then when I got transferred, and I happened to pick up a job in a warehouse in the meantime, which was that company I spent 18 years with, and so I started in their warehouse. And when they transferred me to Winnipeg, my Christian manager in Regina phoned ahead to Winnipeg, and the youth pastor at the Alliance in Winnipeg had a profound difference in me. I was engaged at this point, making a decision for Christ before I got married. And so then we were in the Alliance Church organization for a time, and then in Okotoks we were at an Evangelical Free Church for about 15 years. And then when we came here, we moved over to Emmanuel. Oh, boy, that'd be difficult to select. Hebrews 10:25. There's some verses that just stick in your mind, and forsake not the assembly of yourselves, as is the habit of some, but gather together, and as you see the day drawing near. And so those aren't encouragements; those are mandates. And staying close to your brothers and sisters and being encouraged in the faith and corrected and informed and really embracing everything that Christ has to offer us here, the way he set it up. And some of those verses just stick in my mind. Yeah, Anita and I were talking about that last night, just thinking about this discussion that you and I were going to have today. And when we got transferred to Alberta, we wound up, for financial reasons, because moving from Winnipeg to Alberta was a big jump, and we were just about to get into the housing market ourselves. And we wound up in a little commuter town called Gibbons, north of Edmonton. And we were attending Beverly Alliance Church, and one day another couple and ourselves went to Johnny Bell, our pastor, and said, we're going to start a Bible study out in Gibbons, where we live. And he kind of looked at us, and this was 1980, I think. Billy Graham was just coming to town. And he said, you realize this is not going to stop at just a Bible study? And we kind of, okay. And sure enough, it started growing, and then we did a church plant there, and so I was on the board for that little church plant, and it's now called the Sturgeon Valley Alliance Church, even all these years later. Then we transitioned to Sherwood Park, and I was involved in small groups at the Sherwood Park Alliance Church there. And then when we transferred to Okotoks, we were involved in small group ministry there, and I was the chair of the Facility and Finance Committee. And so we've had that kind of involvement all the way through. You know, some of the things I just love about Emmanuel that you and I were talking about over coffee are the way there is the personal touch and the understanding of quite a bit of what each and other are going through, and it's demonstrated by the leadership that we have now, and that's really wonderful. It can be difficult to maintain as organizations get bigger, and so one of my burdens would be that we keep that. But at the same time that we're able to keep the other thing that I think we do really well, which is be good gatekeepers and look after the flock to make sure they're grazing happily inside and being kept from carnivores on the outside. And I love the expository preaching, and there's just, so the trick then is to how do you accommodate the inevitable growth that other people want to come and be a part of this and still maintain that. And so it'll be fascinating to watch and see what God does, and I'm looking forward to being a part of anything that he's doing that's dramatic like that. It's a really daunting proposition once you take it from read about it to possibly do it. And the impact of that really starts settling in. Certainly to be a person to be worthy to be asked to start with would say that you must have checked off a few of the boxes in Scripture that says, you know, you're coming from a stable relationship, you have depth of time with time and quality and quantity with the Lord's Word. It's impacted your life. It's demonstrating itself for others to see. So that's probably the obvious aspect. Then to be a person that is invested in other people's lives, which is something I mentioned earlier that I think that Emmanuel does ever so well. To be courageous. By nature, I am a curious person. In character trait surveys, I'm what's called a red. And so I will be that person that asks the courageous questions. I walk into situations, and I have pretty good skills for distilling issues, and so I think sometimes, you know, in the mix of the elder group, all these skill sets need to be evident, so that and so I think the Lord calls different men at different times to come together, and those are some attributes that I think that I love the scene of Joshua and Moses. I just love that, you know, and when God's leading like that, and other men are holding up Moses' arms. But down in the valley is the guy with the sword. And all of those fellows were necessary. Without the arms being held up, things wouldn't have gone that well down in the valley. But there needs to be a guy down in the valley. And so that picture has rung in my mind for a long time. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the package coming into the room is going to look like, because we will be a package. Is there anything else that I would want Emmanuel to know? Well, give me a minute to think about that. I'm a compassionate, curious guy, and in my own mission statement that I had to write about 10 years ago for a mentoring and coaching class, I wrote that I yearn to have empowering exchanges with people that I engage intentionally. And I really love those authentic discussions that two guys can feed off each other on and build one another, that aren't just talking about the weather. And I love investing in those. So I really have a heart for young men and for mentoring, and I've poured some energy into learning how to do that. And so I'm really keen to have an opportunity to have some of those authentic exchanges with guys that want to mold themselves into being the next fellow in front of this camera.